Alright guys, brand new Necromancer build for the new season. All we're basically doing is hitting potion. Yes, potion, so watch. All I'm going to do is pop my potion, and the boss is dead. This is the new, brand new Super Mega Belial, hardest difficulty T4, and we just defeated him with absolute ease over here. But anyways, let's go ahead and actually show off the most important part, which is of course seeing how it handles the open world, and then we'll also talk a little bit about how the build is played. So for starters, let's go to the brand new little incursions, so you guys can see how it performs in open world, because there's some builds that are really great for bossing but kind of suffer from open world content. Bloodwave kind of had that problem if you guys have played last season. Bloodwave was great for the bosses, but it did one-shot everything in the open world. But this build over here, guys, it's just basically pop potion and move. If you were a fan of the Cataclysm Druid, which took major nerfs in Season 8, this essentially is going to be the same thing in terms of its gameplay and the playstyle. So we'll go ahead and do a bunch of these little incursions. It's like the brand new forms of content. Obviously, yes, you can push the pit with it, but I want to show you guys new content here. So basically, yeah, you just keep on popping the potion, and we're going to be gaining the potion every single time we hit with 30 times with our Soul Rift. We basically just get extra potion. So how it is essentially played is the two key elements are you activate Soul Rift, and then you just pop potion. Now, the potion's going to have a cooldown, though, just as a heads up, but while you activate it, it will basically give you immortality. It gives you so much damage reduction where, you know, I'll be honest, I think it may need a nerf in more than one way if they decide to nerf it. It's probably going to get nerfed in its survivability because the new boss power, the lasers that shoot out, all these eye lasers, so this is new, laser potion Necromancer, and we're using the brand new Belial power with all of these eyes, and again, you can see all the elites that come out, they're just going to melt instantly. They have no chance. We'll do one of the bosses here because we're almost done with this, and then I'll go and go over a build guide for you guys in case you guys want to try this out on the PTR yourself, or when it comes out, if it does get nerfed, I will also be updating the planner. But this build, guys, it's insane. It really facilitates that fantasy of, again, the Cataclysm Druid, where it is just walking. And what's cool with this build, guys, by the way, you do not need a snapshot. There are other things that you could add into the build, like to gain Unstoppable, you do have a rune word that you can activate, gives you teleport, which just makes the build feel a little bit smoother. You can also shoot out blights to get even more damage because, well, it's a Necromancer build. Every single Necromancer build just has got to play blight because it just gives you a multiplier. It doesn't matter if you're playing minions. It is something we play on every single build. And then also, if you want to consume corpses to get your bonuses, and you'll see that this boss comes out. Did you guys even see the boss? He dropped the legendary, but yeah, this is still the brand new Tormented 4 difficulty, and you're going to be deleting content. So now that you guys have seen the gameplay, let's go ahead and go over the build and what you need to actually run it. Now, what's interesting with this build is I feel like you don't really need mythics to get it to be super powerful, but you do need the boss power, so you cannot play this at level 1, just like a lot of builds. But anyways, let's go ahead and go over the gear. So for starters, there are multiple options for the build that I'm going to suggest. So the two options that I'm going to mention, Harlequin or the Heir of Perdition. And then if you don't want to play Ring of the Starless Skies, you can swap out for another ring. I'd probably recommend running like Inner Calm here. But the reason why is if you want to run Ring of the Starless Skies, it does give you great damage. It also gives you a bunch of extra resource, which we actually use. But the main thing with Ring of Starless Skies is that you have to constantly activate Blight. And I think for people that want the smoother playstyle, run another ring with specifically kind of the same stats as the other ring, which is basically getting any amount of damage over time. And then also you want to get corrupting damage. That's the key player here. Essentially what makes this build do crazy damage is the new boss powers mixed in with Shadow Blight, because its damage is going to be getting increased by your corrupting damage bonus. Shadow damage is also going to be doing corruption damage. So any shadow damage over time is considered going to be in the corruption category. So that is something that is very important, as this is part of what deals our damage. So what deals the damage isn't necessarily a Blight or our Soul Rift, but it is all coming from the Belial's Eye Beam. So it is the laser that's doing all the damage. You can see, even unbuffed, it shows 22 million, which is just crazy. Because even if you look at all the Diablo skills, this one's like 500,000 over here. The thing is that, remember, all this gets multiplied. The thing that's getting multiplied is this 22 million here without buffs. So if I'm outside and I gain all the buffs, this just goes crazy. But let's go over the gear and what you need to get the build running. So like I said before, there are some optional pieces here. I really like Harlequin. So Air of Perdition gives you a 60x multiplier, which is great. However, you become a lot more squishy. But on top of that, Harlequin gives you ranks and it gives you crazy cooldown reduction, allowing you to keep up that overlap on specifically the bonus that you get with the Soul Rift. So Soul Rift has this thing over here where you get a bonus. Every soul absorb increases your damage by 0.5 up to 75x. So obviously 75x better than 60. And then it also persists its bonus, which then can continuously overlap. So I was actually really surprised that they allowed this to go through. This is something that did take a nerf, because I believe it's cut in half, but it is by a long shot the best. The reason why I really like Soul Rift also to keep it up with Harlequin is it applies vulnerability. Just like any build in Diablo, if you don't have vulnerability, you don't really do damage, right? So if you want to, and you have really god rolls, you can go ahead and swap it out. But I have a really good Harlequin here with cooldown reduction, so I'm able to keep it up. But you may want to consider getting cooldown reduction in other pieces of gear, just so you can overlap this. Ideally, it can be infinitely, because you see the cooldown is 10 seconds, but it lasts for 13. You can get a lot of duration on Soul Rift, and you want to overlap it because that way that 75x multiplier never essentially falls off, which is good. So yeah, so as far as gear goes, let's get started now. So starting right off with Harlequin, and then we've got the Shroud of False Death, pretty much bread and butter like a lot of builds, or like, Air of Perdition. Then run Behemoth's Brawler. Everything that's important here is going to be corrupting damage. There's actually an interesting damage to corrupting enemies, or corrupted enemies is what it says, is not the same as corrupting damage. Corrupting damage is the main source that you want, and then for utility, you want to get Soul Rift duration. That is the ideal stats to actually roll. Getting int, getting max life, those are all great stats. Vulnerable damage is okay, but again, the main stat that you want to stack everywhere is corrupting damage on your tempers. And then we run Tybalt's Will. This will give us extra resource. And then how we get unstoppable, because Necromancer sadly doesn't really have unstoppable in the build. We actually run some rune words to grant it. So the rune words that I'm running are Yugioh, so it's going to give us teleport. The other option is to run the rogue one. The rogue one costs a little bit more. Doesn't really matter. If you want to play the rogue rune word, that's kind of there as an option. And then the other runes that we're running are Yaks Quacks. So when we drink a potion, which is kind of how we do all of our damage, it's going to utilize that bonus where we're going to be spending all of our primary resource, and it's going to do a massive amount of damage. That's why we want resource. We don't need resource to do any damage. We can activate Blight, which will give us another 20x multiplier. But yeah. Anyways, Behemoths, we're running this to get the additional skill ranks and extra damage because we keep up our ultimate the whole time. And then again, Tybalt's, that's how we activate the Unstoppable. We get damage reduction. I have literally the worst roll on the maximum resource. That is a multiplier in the build by a lot. So you do want to get a GA on max resource. And then we're running the boots with the Cursed Aura here, and that's going to make it so it automatically applies these curses because I like the lazy playstyle. If you want to manually cast it, you can run something else, but it just makes the build super smooth. And then we're also running a two-handed here. You do want to try to prioritize getting an axe as your two-handed because it gives you damage over time, which is essentially what this build does. You want to get corrupting damage on it as well as getting Titan's Fall. And then you want to get the aspect to get increased shadow damage over time. It is Of the Damned is the name of the aspect over here. But again, Titan's Fall, corrupting damage is the stats that you want. And then as far as our amulet, I decided to go with cooldown reduction. Ideally, again, as long as this is here, you may not need to get cooldown reduction every single spot. I do have a GA Harlequin, so more than likely you may want to get this if you didn't get a GA Harlequin with CDR, which I know that's kind of like something that's rough to get. You can also get another ring here instead of the Starless Skies to make sure you get that cooldown reduction. That's very important that you keep this up 100% of the time. And then we run Sacrificial in our ring slot. Again, getting that corrupting damage and ultimate cooldown reduction. That's what we're tempering on all of our pieces of gear. If you can get any other bonuses, as far as like instead of max life being GA, if it was to any offensive stat, that's great as well. But we're running Blighted over here, so we deal more damage after we activate the Shadow Blight key passive, which we'll go over once we get into the tree. And then we're running Sacrificial because, well, we're not a minion build. Might as well get all the sacrifice bonuses. And then we also have Ring of the Starless Skies over here. So we can run this or run a ring with Inner Calm and then just get, again, damage over time. You You get corrupting, ultimate cooldown reduction. Those are all great stats. Now, as far as the Book of the Dead, we are going to be getting that increased shadow damage from sacrificing the Reapers. We're going to sacrifice the Cold Mages to get increased vulnerable damage. And then with the Golem, we are just going to get the increased HP over here. So I really like that. There's another option, where if you really want to, you can stack up your blights more often. It's optional. I like the survivability of this a lot more, especially when you play it with Air of Perdition. Because I was actually trying it with Air of Perdition, which in theory it's actually lower damage and lower survivability. So I just recommend Harlequin. And again, that extra HP that you're getting all scales off of the bonus max life. And the build is incredibly tanky. Well, it's pretty much incredibly tanky because of the boss powers, to be honest. I mean, look at this. There's really very few things in the game that'll give you 75% damage reduction. So yeah, all the damage basically comes from this. So it's Belial's Eye Beams. So when you drink a potion, you get 75 damage reduction, and then for 2 seconds you get this little eye beam that shoots everywhere, and yeah, it melts. It's a laser. And then your healing potion becomes disabled for that duration, so it's not up technically 100% of the time, but you don't really feel it, to be honest. And then we are running at Cinnarat's Flames. This gives us extra damage to all those elements. And then we get also Avarice Explosive Ore. This is why we want Resource. And then the Soul Rift will facilitate all the Resource. And then the Andaro's Flaming Skull. So burning enemies take 40x more damage from your over time effects. So it's just going to automatically activate for free. And that's what we get most of our damage from. Now, moving into the skill tree over here. I guess we can go over our skills. So Soul Rift, we just activate it whenever. It's basically up 100%. We activate this when we want to, and then we can... This actually facilitates bonus damage as well as applies another 20x multiplier. So it facilitates Ring of the Starless Skies, and that's why you run Blight. It's in every build, and it tells you it's all shadow damage. And then Blood Mist over here, we use this to break crowd control, but pretty much you're immune the whole time because you're really, really tanky in this build from as far as survivability goes. But getting frozen still sucks, so yeah, this works. You don't really need to push the skill like ever, but if you want to generate corpses on bosses so you can get your multipliers with your corpse consumption, on the Paragon board, you can use these. There's also, if you want to play the one with the blood orb that can spawn with corpse tendrils, it's optional. I decided to go with another one, which I will show you guys, which makes it, again, more beginner friendly. Because I always try to make my builds as beginner friendly as possible, because then you have to spawn a blood orb, and it's only a chance. It's this one over here, where it has a 35% chance to drop a blood orb, then you got to go collect it to do the damage. And I'd rather have it automated, and I'll show you guys what I've done with the build. So as far as the skills go, the first 2 points literally don't matter. Just running Decompose, because it's better than nothing. It's better than any other one. This one is optional because it can generate a corpse, but that's an extra point that you don't need to put into. Just to progress, we're getting the one where Lucky can generate a corpse, and then also getting that increased essence. This will give us more damage. This will give us a corpse. The corpse will then give us fortification. Then we want the supernatural blight, and then over here we want to get corpse explosion. You have an extra point. You can get this if you want to, and then you get more damage after you consume a corpse. We get Titan's Fall, all the kind of stuff you'd see all the time on Necromancer, just getting extra armor. These are all great to grab. And then over here we get all of the bonus damage and damage reduction. I love movement speed, so we get this. I really like getting Abhorrent Decrepify, which automatically gives us extra cooldown. Enemies hit while affected by the Decrepify can reduce your cooldown, so it helps out with their ultimate, because every single time we're activating an ultimate, we get that multiplier as well from Behemoths. And then you can also run Enhanced Iron Maiden. So how it works is you just gain 5 essence every single enemy that you tag. So this way you're always regenerating essence, so you can use your quacks, and then you can spend all your resource, and then it's great for extra bonus damage. Then you get that bonus damage while healthy. You get all of the shadow nodes over here, getting the extra fortification. This is how we get fortification in the build. We get all of the sacrifice bonuses, maxing out Soul Rift, and then we also grab the Shadow Blight over here. Now, as far as the Paragon board, we're going to be starting off with Exploit over here, getting that extra vulnerable damage. Soul Rift will automatically apply it. Then we go into Flesh Eater, and then we grab Scourge over here. So again, we want all that corruption damage. And then we can go and grab Wither. This is going to give us extra corrupting effects, have a 5% chance to deal 50x bonus damage each time they deal damage, and then it goes crazy over here. So Wither over there, and then Darkness, so we can increase shadow damage. And then we can get Frailty, so cursed enemies take more damage from us, and we get Abyssal over here. So yeah, once again, just going over all of them. Exploit, Scourge, Darkness, Abyssal, And then for the final one, we play Amplify. So it's going to make it so enemies affected by curses take increased damage from us. You can also run Eliminator. That is another one that you can play. I opted for this over here because we get the bonus from all like the magic over. So it's healthy and injured over here. Then we get Scent of Death, or the one where if you collect blood orbs. So I like this one because it's automatic. I don't have to wait for the blood orb. I don't have to walk and pick it up. I like lazy play styles, but the other one, in theory, it can give you more damage for like a brief moment, but then it loses out on its damage, and sometimes there is no corpse, and then you have to apply like the basic attack, and I think a lot of people would prefer a smoother playstyle. It's up to you. The Blood Orb one gives you 10x damage as long as you consume one per orb, but again, this isn't a Blood Wave build. There's not going to be hundreds of orbs just coming out, so I like this one. So how it works is against bosses, because there's no corpses really against the boss unless you hit them sometimes, and you would need to use the corpse consumption anyways. As long as there's 2 corpses, you also gain damage reduction. But if there's no corpses, you get to get increased damage. So either way, if it's on or off, doesn't matter. You're getting some sort of benefit. So I really actually prefer Scent of Death. But again, you can run the one where you collect blood orbs. That is up to you. But as far as it goes right now, guys, this is the top tier Necromancer build. If you want to do Pit 100, it is actually possible with this build. Right now, all the builds that are doing 100 aren't really even based off of like the skills. It's all the boss power. So because I've had a couple people ask me what do I think of like this build, and honestly this build is way better than the new minions build. You know, I actually just dropped the video guide. I'll link it down below. It's all about these minions that explode. That is the other new Necromancer build, but this one I would say, if you're wondering like which one is better, because people want to maybe play the Necromancer and they're wondering, is the new summons better or is the new I-beam version better? The I-beam is 100% better. However, it may get nerfed. The other one, the one where you have these exploding minions, I want to say that one probably will be getting buffed because while it is still good for open world content, it is just miles behind this one. So this is the one that I would recommend. If things do not change, keep in mind it's PTR, things are subject to change, but also leave the planner down below in case any of you guys want to build it. And if things do actually get updated and change, I will also be updating the planner. But have some fun with it, guys. The I-beam Necromancer build is an absolute blast to play. But if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here and you want to see the update to this build when the time comes, subscribe, turn the bell, and I'll definitely update you guys. But take care, and the link will be in the bio and also in the pin. Enjoy, Necromancers. This is the build next season.